There are people who don't announce what they're working on. They don't post countdowns. They don't talk much about their plans. They rarely frame their year with big declarations. And yet, when you look back over time, something is always different. They've moved. They've grown. They've built something. They've changed their circumstances, not dramatically, not loudly, but consistently. Every year, something in their life has shifted forward. This kind of progress doesn't come from motivation. It often comes from how someone relates to themselves when no one is watching. People who quietly achieve their goals tend to have a different relationship with attention. They don't rely on it to create momentum. They don't need to be seen starting in order to keep going. They don't borrow energy from applause. In fact, many of them are slightly uncomfortable with visibility around unfinished things. They don't like exposing intentions before they have become realities, not because they're secretive, but because they see goals as fragile in their early stages. Something changes when a goal becomes public. It turns into an identity, an expectation, a story other people start holding you to. Quiet achievers often avoid that shift. They prefer their goals to remain private until they're strong enough to exist on their own. So instead of talking, they build. Another trait you'll often find is this: they don't negotiate with the future version of themselves. They don't romanticize tomorrow. Their effort lives in the present. When something needs to be done, they deal with it right where it is. This makes their growth almost invisible. From the outside, it can look like nothing is happening. But from the inside, there is constant, quiet adjustment. They correct small things early. They notice drift before it becomes distance. They respond to reality instead of arguing with it. Another difference lies in how they experience time. Quiet achievers don't usually organize their lives around dramatic turning points. They don't wait for the right year, the right season, or the right version of themselves. They work with whatever state they're in: tired, confused, motivated, uncertain. They don't need to feel ready. They just need to be honest about what's required next. This creates a very particular emotional rhythm. Their progress doesn't come in bursts, it accumulates, which is why it's often underestimated. They're not chasing transformation, they're practicing continuity. There's also something important about how they relate to failure. Quiet achievers don't dramatize setbacks. They don't build identity around them. They don't broadcast them. They don't use them as evidence. When something doesn't work, it becomes information, not a verdict. They don't ask, "What does this say about me?" They ask, "What does this change?" So their energy stays directed toward adjustment, not interpretation. And this protects something essential: momentum. Because the more meaning you attach to every misstep, the heavier progress becomes. Quiet achievers keep their goals psychologically light enough to continue carrying them, not by minimizing them, but by not turning them into measures of self-worth. There's also a deep sense of internal accountability. They don't move because someone is watching. They move because they are aware. They notice when they're avoiding something. They notice when they're slipping. They notice when they're out of alignment. And that awareness is often more powerful than pressure. For them, motivation does not need to be loud. It only needs to be consistent. This is why quiet achievers often surprise people, not because they did something extraordinary, but because they never made a show of the ordinary work that led there. Their growth wasn't designed to be observed. It was designed to be lived, and maybe that's the core of it. People who quietly achieve their goals every year are rarely chasing outcomes. They're shaping environments. They're adjusting behaviors. They're honoring small agreements with themselves. Their success isn't built on willpower. It's built on relationship, a relationship with their time, with their energy. They don't conquer themselves. They work with themselves. So if you're someone who doesn't talk much about what you're building, if your progress feels invisible even to people close to you, if your life changes more in hindsight than in headlines, there's nothing missing. Some forms of growth are not meant to be motivating. They're meant to be sustainable. And often, the people who arrive somewhere new each year are simply the ones who never stopped quietly improving the way they live, not to impress the world, but to stay in alignment with the life they're actually in.